I didn't grow up with any special talent for languages. My family didn't provide me with any language exposure at all. Before I started learning English in middle school, I didn't know any foreign language. In fact, when I first began studying English, my grades were terrible. I didn't understand why the language was so hard for me to grasp. It felt like everyone else was picking it up faster, and I was always left behind. However, what truly pushed me forward wasn't the need to pass exams, but a growing sense of curiosity. English, being so different from my native language, fascinated me. It wasn't just the idea of learning another language. It was the way English sounded and the way it was used in movies, music, and even on TV shows. I wanted to understand what people were saying without needing subtitles, and that curiosity became my motivation to improve. In the beginning, it felt like I had no talent for language learning at all. I struggled through many classes, trying to memorize vocabulary lists and understand grammar rules. But none of it seemed to stick. Every test seemed like an uphill battle. My lack of progress was discouraging, and I often wondered if I was just not cut out for it. Yet, every time I encountered something in English that interested me, whether it was a line from a song, a scene from a movie, or a post from a celebrity I followed, it reignited my passion. I soon realized that what drove me wasn't the pressure of exams or the desire to get good grades. Instead, it was my personal interest in the language itself. I wanted to understand and communicate in English, and that desire became my primary motivation. One day, after another frustrating English test, I decided to change my approach completely. Rather than focusing on textbook grammar and memorization, I started listening more carefully to how native speakers used the language. I would listen to their intonation, their pronunciation, and the way they strung words together in a natural flow. After hearing them speak, I'd try to mimic their speech as closely as I could, practicing until I felt I was getting it right. I didn't just stop there. I also recorded myself speaking, so I could compare my pronunciation with native speakers. At first, it was difficult to hear the difference, but over time, I began to pick up on subtle nuances in how I was speaking versus how native speakers sounded. I spent hours doing this, repeating phrases, adjusting my pronunciation, and slowly improving. Learning English became something I genuinely enjoyed. It was no longer just about passing a test or meeting a requirement. That shift in perspective changed everything for me. I was more engaged, more curious, and more determined to succeed. From that point on, my learning experience became less of a chore and more of an exciting journey, where every small improvement felt like a victory. When it comes to learning a language, I don't think talent is the most important factor. Many people believe that only those with a natural gift for languages can succeed, but I disagree. In my experience, what really determines success is your interest and passion for the language. If you enjoy what you're doing, learning becomes a lot easier and much more rewarding. For example, if someone is studying English just to pass a test or because they're forced to, it's easy to lose motivation. Reading difficult textbooks or memorizing long lists of vocabulary can feel boring and exhausting. But if you have a personal interest in something connected to the language, it can make all the difference. For me, The turning point was finding things in English that I actually liked, like music, movies, and social media posts from people I admired. Take a moment to imagine this. You really love a certain American or British actor, or maybe you're a fan of a popular singer. Instead of forcing yourself to read dry material, you could follow them on social media, watch their interviews, and see their latest movies. Without even realizing it, you'll be improving your language skills while enjoying yourself. You'll pick up new words, phrases, and even cultural references that you wouldn't get from a textbook. And because you're passionate about the content, it won't feel like studying, it'll feel fun. This is the key difference that many people overlook. Passion drives progress. When you're excited about what you're learning, it's much easier to stay consistent. You'll find yourself looking forward to studying, even if it's just watching a movie in English or reading an article online. This kind of consistent engagement leads to faster improvement, because you're putting in the time without feeling like it's a chore. On the other hand, if your only reason for learning English is to pass an exam, it's easy to become frustrated and burned out. You may even start to dread your study sessions. In contrast, when you're truly interested in the language, you look for opportunities to use it in your daily life, whether through entertainment or even by talking to people online. You'll seek out material that challenges you just enough to keep you growing, but that also keeps you entertained. For me, learning English became an adventure once I started focusing on the things that genuinely excited me. Instead of dreading my English classes, I looked forward to the times when I could watch a new movie or read something interesting online. It wasn't about memorizing rules or cramming for tests anymore. It was about enjoying the process and making the language a part of my life. That's why I always tell people, if you want to succeed in learning a language, find something about it that you love. It could be the culture, the entertainment, or even just a hobby that involves the language. When you're passionate about what you're learning, the results will follow naturally. In my journey of learning English, I discovered that using effective methods was essential for my progress. At first, I tried the traditional route, memorizing vocabulary and grammar rules. I spent countless hours writing out sentences and drilling flashcards, but the results were frustratingly slow. I realized that these methods didn't suit my learning style, and I needed to find a way that worked for me. One day, I stumbled upon the idea of listening to native speakers. This simple shift transformed my learning experience. I began by watching English movies and TV shows. At first, I used subtitles in my native language to understand the plot and context. Gradually, I switched to English subtitles to challenge myself while still having a bit of help. Over time, I became more confident and started watching without any subtitles at all. Listening actively was key to my improvement. I would pay close attention to how characters spoke, noting their intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation. I noticed how they used everyday language in different situations. This approach helped me grasp not just vocabulary, but also the flow of conversation. I began to pick up idiomatic expressions and phrases that I wouldn't find in textbooks. In addition to watching shows, I also listened to podcasts and music in English. I would replay my favorite songs, focusing on the lyrics and trying to sing along. This practice not only improved my listening skills but also helped with my pronunciation. I found that mimicking the way singers pronounced words made a significant difference in my speaking abilities. Another effective method I discovered was self-recording. I started recording myself speaking in English, whether I was summarizing a movie or discussing my day. Listening back to my recordings allowed me to identify areas for improvement. I could hear the differences between my pronunciation and that of native speakers. This technique was invaluable in helping me become more aware of my speaking habits. I also made it a point to engage in conversations with others. Joining language exchange groups allowed me to practice speaking with native speakers. Initially, I felt nervous about making mistakes, but I quickly learned that most people were patient and supportive. Practicing with others helped me build confidence and improved my fluency. I learned that real conversations are different from scripted dialogues. They are spontaneous and require quick thinking. Through consistent practice and the right methods, my language skills improved rapidly. The combination of listening, speaking, and self-recording created a dynamic learning environment for me. I learned that it's essential to be adaptable and find methods that resonate with you personally. In summary, my language learning journey involved a mix of listening to native speakers, watching engaging content, recording myself, and practicing with others. These methods kept me motivated and led to steady improvement. It's all about finding what works best for you and making the process enjoyable. Language learning is not a sprint. It's a marathon that requires consistent effort over time. One of the most important lessons I learned during my journey is that improvement often comes after reaching a critical point, a moment when everything seems to click. This breakthrough usually happens after a significant investment of time and practice, and it's essential to stay patient and persistent along the way. During my university years, I decided to take my English learning to the next level. I joined an English speech competition, which demanded intensive practice. I committed myself to 10 hours of focused training each day. At first, the workload was overwhelming. I spent hours rehearsing my speech, working on my pronunciation, and perfecting my delivery. However, I was determined to succeed, and I knew that pushing myself would yield results. After 3 months of relentless practice, I experienced a noticeable leap in my language skills. I could express myself more clearly and confidently. My vocabulary expanded, and my understanding of complex sentences improved. I realized that this significant growth was a direct result of the intense training I had committed to. The daily practice had not only strengthened my speaking skills but also increased my comfort level with the language. I also learned the importance of setting specific goals to help measure my progress. For instance, I aimed to memorize a certain number of new vocabulary words each week, or I set a goal to complete a specific number of listening exercises. These clear objectives kept me focused and motivated. When I achieved them, it boosted my confidence and encouraged me to set even higher goals. Another crucial factor in reaching that breakthrough point was to embrace mistakes as part of the learning process. In my early days of practice, I was afraid of making errors. However, I soon realized that mistakes were valuable opportunities for growth. Each time I stumbled, I learned something new. This mindset shift helped me become more resilient and open to trying new things, whether it was speaking with native speakers or experimenting with different learning methods. As I continued to practice, I began to notice that language learning became more enjoyable. The effort I put into my studies started to pay off, and I found myself engaged in conversations and discussions with greater ease. It felt like a switch had flipped. The hard work I had invested finally bore fruit. This breakthrough experience showed me that with dedication and perseverance, language learning is indeed achievable. In conclusion, accumulating time and effort is vital in the language learning process. It's essential to be patient and remain committed, even when progress seems slow. By pushing myself through rigorous training, setting specific goals, and embracing mistakes, I was able to reach that critical point where my skills improved dramatically. Remember, every bit of practice counts, and breakthroughs often come when you least expect them. When it comes to learning vocabulary, traditional methods often feel tedious and uninteresting. I remember spending hours trying to memorize long lists of words, but this approach rarely worked for me. Eventually, I discovered a more enjoyable and effective way to learn vocabulary, through movies and TV shows. This method not only made learning fun but also allowed me to learn words in context, which is essential for retention. Watching movies was a game changer in my language learning journey. At first, I used subtitles in my native language to understand the story better. This helped me get familiar with the characters and the plot. As I became more comfortable, I switched to English subtitles. This way, I could hear the dialogue while reading along, which improved my listening skills and reinforced my vocabulary. After I gained confidence, I started watching without subtitles. This was a bit challenging at first, but it forced me to rely solely on my listening skills. I noticed that I began to pick up words and phrases naturally. When I encountered a new word, I would try to infer its meaning from the context of the scene. This method made vocabulary learning feel less like a chore and more like an exciting puzzle to solve. One of the best parts of using movies and TV shows for vocabulary learning is the exposure to everyday language. Unlike textbooks that often use formal language, movies reflect how people actually speak. I learned common expressions, idioms, and slang that I wouldn't have encountered in traditional learning materials. This knowledge helped me sound more natural when I spoke English. To make the most of this method, I would sometimes replay specific scenes. I would listen carefully to how the characters pronounced certain words and phrases. I would even pause and repeat what they said, trying to mimic their intonation and rhythm. This practice not only helped with my pronunciation but also made me more confident in my speaking abilities. I also discovered the value of engaging with the content beyond just watching. After finishing a movie or episode, I would discuss it with friends or write a short summary in English. This reinforced the vocabulary I had learned and encouraged me to use it in context. Writing about the story helped me organize my thoughts and express myself better in English. In summary, using movies and TV shows to learn vocabulary transformed my approach to language learning. It made the process enjoyable and allowed me to learn words in context. By immersing myself in the language through engaging content, I was able to expand my vocabulary naturally and effectively. This method not only helped me learn new words but also improved my listening and speaking skills, making me feel more comfortable using English in everyday conversations. The ultimate goal of learning a language is to communicate effectively. While studying vocabulary and grammar is important, nothing compares to the real-life practice of using the language. I found that engaging in conversations with others was the most effective way to solidify my language skills. Communication not only helps you practice what you've learned, but it also pushes you to think on your feet and respond quickly. In my own experience, I actively sought opportunities to speak English. During my time in graduate school, I joined various language exchange groups. These gatherings brought together people from different backgrounds who were eager to practice their language skills. Initially, I felt nervous about making mistakes, but I quickly realized that everyone was there to learn, just like me. This supportive environment helped me gain confidence in my speaking abilities. I made it a point to engage in conversations as often as I could. Whether it was discussing academic topics or sharing experiences, I learned that each conversation was a chance to practice new vocabulary and sentence structures. I even started to form friendships with native speakers, which enriched my learning experience. The more I spoke, the more comfortable I became with the language. In addition to group conversations, I also made use of online platforms to connect with English speakers. Websites and apps designed for language exchange allowed me to find conversation partners from around the world. We would set up video calls to chat about various topics, from our favorite movies to cultural differences. These interactions not only improved my speaking skills but also gave me insights into different cultures, making my language learning journey even more rewarding. Through these experiences, I learned that the key to retaining language skills is regular practice. Speaking English daily, even if it was just for a few minutes, helped me keep my skills sharp. I became more fluent and started to think in English rather than translating from my native language. This shift was a significant milestone in my language learning journey. Moreover, practical use of the language made it easier to learn additional languages. Once I became proficient in English, I found that picking up other languages became less daunting. The skills I developed while learning English, like listening, speaking, and understanding context, translated well into learning new languages. I realized that the more languages I learned, the easier it became to recognize patterns and similarities. In summary, actual language use is the key to progress. Engaging in conversations, whether in person or online, helps reinforce what you've learned and builds confidence. The more you communicate, the more natural the language becomes. By actively using English in various contexts, I was able to solidify my skills and prepare myself for future language learning endeavors. Remember, the goal is not just to learn a language but to use it confidently and effectively in everyday situations. In today's digital age, technology has revolutionized language learning, making it more efficient and accessible than ever before. With a wealth of resources available online, learners can find methods that suit their individual needs and preferences. I discovered that utilizing modern tools was crucial to my success in learning English and other languages. One of the most effective ways I found to enhance my learning was through online courses. Many platforms offer structured lessons, interactive exercises, and even live sessions with instructors. These courses allowed me to learn at my own pace, fitting study time into my busy schedule. I appreciated the flexibility of being able to study whenever and wherever I wanted, whether it was during my commute or at home. In addition to online courses, I took advantage of language learning apps. These apps often feature gamified learning experiences that make studying fun and engaging. I could practice vocabulary, grammar, and listening skills through quizzes and challenges. Setting daily goals and tracking my progress kept me motivated, and the instant feedback helped me identify areas for improvement. Another great resource I utilized was social media. I followed accounts that posted content in English, including quotes, idioms, and cultural insights. This not only exposed me to the language in a more informal setting but also made learning feel relevant to my daily life. Engaging with these posts often led me to interesting discussions in the comments, allowing me to practice my writing skills in a relaxed environment. Moreover, I found that joining online forums and communities related to my interests was beneficial. Whether it was a book club, a film discussion group, or a travel forum, participating in these communities provided me with opportunities to interact with others in English. I could ask questions, share opinions, and connect with people who shared similar interests, all while practicing my language skills. As I explored different learning methods, I realized that it's essential to find what works best for you. Each person has a unique learning style, so what may work for one individual might not work for another. Experimenting with various approaches allowed me to discover the best combination for my language learning journey. It's about being open to trying new things and adapting as you progress. In conclusion, effective language learning in today's world relies heavily on utilizing technology and finding methods that resonate with you. Online courses, language learning apps, social media, and community engagement all offer valuable resources to enhance your skills. By taking advantage of these tools, I was able to make significant progress in my English learning journey. Remember, the key is to stay curious and be willing to explore different approaches until you find the perfect fit for you. In summary, my language learning journey has been a transformative experience driven by curiosity and passion. Starting with no language skills and facing initial challenges, I discovered that interest plays a vital role in success. By finding engaging content, such as movies and music, I was able to enjoy the learning process while acquiring vocabulary and understanding. My methods evolved from rote memorization to active listening, self-recording, and conversing with native speakers, which significantly boosted my confidence and fluency. As I accumulated time and effort, I experienced breakthroughs that demonstrated the importance of persistence. Engaging with the language in real-life contexts allowed me to solidify my skills and prepared me for learning additional languages. I also learned to embrace mistakes as valuable learning opportunities. Lastly, utilizing modern technology, including online courses and language learning apps, enhanced my efficiency and adaptability in language acquisition. By staying curious and open to various methods, I found a personalized approach that worked for me. Ultimately, effective language learning is not just about mastering vocabulary and grammar. It's about using the language confidently in everyday situations, making communication the key to progress. I hope today's sharing can be helpful to everyone. Everyone can find the learning method that suits them best. Thank you, and goodbye.